Dale Kurlinski for the Kent State University Oral History Project for the U.S. Modern Period in History. The interview is being conducted at Dale's home on March 22, 1993. My name is Debbie Calley. Dale, does Kent State University have your permission to make the following available for public use?
Yes.
Okay. Dale, you were 18 years old when you joined the service. Were you a volunteer or were you drafted?
Well, really, either one. They had a middle ground there and received greetings from the president. You could volunteer for enlistment rather than being drafted.
Okay. What branch did you serve?
U.S. Army Corps of Engineers.
Did you choose this branch? And if so, why?
Well, my dad always, all my young life, talked about nothing except me being an engineer. Matter of fact, I didn't think there was even any other thing that people did other than engineering. So since I had intended to go to college to study engineering, I thought I'd go into the Corps of Engineers.
Was your dad an engineer?
No.
No.
He wishes he was. I
Oh.
wish he was.
What was your rank in the service?
Went in as a private and came out a private first class.
And your training, what did that consist of?
I believe it was 13 weeks of, they might have called boot camp, and included marksmanship with M1 rifle and pikes and survival training. And I think that's about it.
Was that in the States?
Yes. Camp Sutton, North Carolina, and then later at Camp Claiborne, Louisiana.
How did your unit get transported to Europe?
We went over on a Puerto Rican banana boat.
Were those borrowed by the military for that purpose?
Yes, I believe so.
How did your superiors prepare you psychologically for what you might face?
There wasn't too much preparation except shortly before we arrived in Europe, which took about 11 days. The captain gave us a little talk. He said that some of us might not be coming back.
How did that phrase hit you when you were 18 years old?
I sounded kind of ludicrous to me. I never thought about dying. I didn't think I would have become.
What exactly was your mission in Europe?
Mainly building bridges, repairing roads, and things of that sort, so that the supply trucks could make it to the front line.
Did you have training in those types of operations
Yes,
in the States
not in the States.
once you got to Europe?
Right.
What types of weapons did you carry?
I had an M1 rifle, which weighed, I think, about 14 pounds.
Was it always with you? Did you carry it everywhere you went?
Yes.
When you were building, it was right there beside you then. What were your orders on using your rifle? Did you have any specific?
I don't remember any specific orders. Obviously, you're supposed to point it at anybody. You're supposed to keep the safety lock on at all times. We always had ammunition.
Mm-hmm. In regard to the building that you did of the bridges and roads, what types of building equipment did you use, and how did you transport this equipment to the site?
We built a lot of what they call Bailey bridges, which was a bridge named after the designer of that bridge. He was an Englishman named Bailey. They consisted of panels maybe about 16 feet long, 8 feet high, almost like an erector set. These individual panels were carried on wooden sticks by, it might have been 6 or 8 men, because they were very heavy. And then pinned together on one side of a river or a chasm, and pre-weighted on one end, so when you pushed them over, they would land on the other side, because there was a counterweight on the back side of it, so it wouldn't fall down into the river.
Were any of these
put the floor on it, which was a pretty wooden plank.
How wide were most of these rivers that you were spanning?
Well, they varied quite a bit. There were also pontoon bridges for very wide rivers that you couldn't use a Bailey bridge.
Okay.
And how did we transport them? By truck. We did a lot of trucks.
Okay. Describe the methods that your unit used in your building operations. What was the organization of the unit?
Well, we had a sergeant who was in charge of the platoon, and then above him was a staff sergeant, and then the tech sergeant, and several officers. The highest one in our company being a captain, and I think there were like 2 lieutenants.
Well, did each man have a particular specialty in the building process?
No, it was just sort of like labor being.
So every day
We had different rankings or types, like there was a demolition man who his charge was going up in mines or searching out booby traps. There was a medic for each platoon. Obviously, we had a cook and several cooks.
Did you have tents where you stayed, or?
We had pup tents, but sometimes we stayed in French or German buildings. We stayed in the chateau in France. And, big building in Germany that was almost like a lion's meetings.
Quite an education for an 18-year-old then, right?
Oh, yeah. I think I was 19 when I got into Europe.
You were still very young, though, to be traveling the world. You mentioned mines. Did you ever find any mines and see them Cornwall?
No, we had 1 or 2 fellows.
What type of structures did you build? You mentioned bridges and roads. Were you ever in charge of airfields?
No, we didn't do airfields. We had another group that did that. We built a prison camp that we used for prisoners as the laborers filled it. And it was a wire fence, a barbed wire fence, with a high guard shack overseeing that.
Who were the prisoners in this camp?
Well, most of them were German, but they were also from other parts of Europe, police and Russian. any place the Germans could find somebody in place.
Was this a camp that you saw in operation, or did you build it and then pretty much
No,
leave? You helped
I think
operate it.
we used the prisoners to prepare the road.
What were the conditions like in that prison?
Oh, I think all the prisoners were glad they were captured, and none of them really wanted to leave. Matter of fact, one time uh, we each had about 20 prisoners and took them out on the truck. And when I came back in, they counted them and I had 21. But I think probably what happened was one of the other groups straight into my group, and when they counted the other group, they probably thought there were 20, but there were probably only 19.
How do you think this camp compared to some of the other camps we've heard about since then? Auschwitz and was this camp in Germany?
Auschwitz wasn't a camp of death.
Okay.
That was all that a prisoner. An entirely different category. No, our prisoners were well treated.
Okay.
They lived in pup tents with a short tent at the pitch.
So there weren't any real buildings there. It was just
No,
the barbed wire fence. And where did you stay when you were there
they were in a French chateau.
at that point? About the building process on the bridges and that type of thing, what was the speed of the building process? How fast could you put up a bridge?
Now, I think we could put up a Bailey Bridge in, well, I'm guessing, but probably 6 hours.
And how many men working on it?
Maybe 80 something. Prisoners didn't put up bridges, I think.
Mm-hmm. You said some of the parts were prefabricated then, like on a Bailey Bridge.
Yeah.
Where did your building materials come from? They came in by truck, you mentioned, but like where were they? What was your supply?
I don't know exactly where the Bailey Bridge parts came from, but I suspected they came from England because that's where the bridge was designed. And probably came over on boat. I'm sure they came over the boat.
From the States?
No, from England.
From England.
They may have come from the States, but I think they probably came from England.
What countries in Europe did you see?
Scotland, England, Wales, France, Belgium, and Germany.
All on these same missions?
Yeah,
The bridges?
No, we didn't build bridges. Scotland and Wales.
Did you
France,
land in
Belgium, and Germany where we built bridges. Worked on the building.
in the prison camp you were talking about? What country was that in?
France.
In France. Did you have much interaction with the civilians in any of these countries?
Oh, yeah. Mainly girls. No, I met some other people too. I remember once in England, I was riding on a bus in a camp downtown Liverpool, and you're sitting there at the window seat, staring out the window with my usual long face. As I looked very young, I probably didn't look more than 14 at that point. And some little English lady was sitting next to me, and she got up to go out. She grabbed my hand and she put a sixpence in my hand and went out.
She wanted to take care of you then. Did you have any joint efforts with Allied military units?
No.
Okay. Were you ever engaged in combat?
Well, we were strafed a number of times, but weren't in that the actual physical home. Remember when we went from Cherbourg up to near the Battle of the Bulge to bring a truck convoy in. The idiots all had their lights on, and we got up to a certain point, and the guards on the road said, "Turn those lights out." Well, it was at night, obviously. And we turned all our lights out, and then there was like a crook in the road where you went from one to the next parallel road. And just as we got on that other road, somebody strafed the road that we were just on before then.
Were you near the battle? You were near the Battle of the Bulge then,
Near it,
but not directly involved in it.
we were just sort of like a cork in a bottle there. We were supposed to stop the Germans if they came that way. If they had come that way, they could have gone all the way to Paris, because we couldn't have stopped them. We didn't have that kind of respect.
Mm-hmm.
And in addition to that, before we left Cherbourg, they took all our heavy weapons away from us because they belonged to the other army, different army.
So the outcome could have been totally different. You showed me pictures of the camp from the prison camp that you built. What specifically about that experience stands out in your mind more than anything?
Well, I just told you about it. I took 20 prisoners and brought it 21. I'll never forget them.
So it would probably surprise most people that the Germans and some of their fighting men wanted to be in their prison camp.
The war was coming quite close to an end by that time. They didn't want to be in it.
Okay.
Another thing we used to do is I didn't smoke, so I'd trade cigarettes looking for coins or badges or something.
Souvenirs that you could bring home?
Yes.
Were you exposed to any of the death camps?
We were near one, and I could have gone to see it after the war was over and during it, but I didn't. Some of the fellas went to look at it. I don't remember which one it was. I didn't believe it.
Did you speak to any of them after they had been there?
Oh, yes.
What were their comments?
Pretty bad.
They probably didn't want to talk too much about it then?
I don't recall.
Mm-hmm. Did your unit take part in any demolition operations?
No, I think we did.
Tell me about some specific construction or demolition operations and where they occurred. Any specific major operations?
I don't remember any exact places where we built bridges, but we worked on the roads from Cherbourg on wherever the front lines were. The French roads are so soft that they were torn up rather easily by constant truck traffic, and tanks in particular were really terrible.
Were you just clearing a road?
Oh no, we were clearing it. We had asphalt or materials like that. Mainly the gasoline trucks were different. They called that the Red Ball Express.
To supply the lines. What were some of
We painted trees with whitewash also, so that at night the trucks could run off the road.
Wouldn't have to use their lights?
Well, they probably had to use lights to a certain point. French roads were so narrow that they needed something to keep them on the road.
Okay. What were some of the greatest obstacles to your mission?
my mission or
Mm-hmm.
to the mission in general?
Either to your road building operations or to your bridge building operations. What were the greatest obstacles you faced, your unit?
I didn't really have any obstacles. We had plenty of supplies and nothing to do it.
So you felt
Personal obstacle was getting along with all these other people. Some were not anything like me.
Mm-hmm. Did you kind of gravitate toward men that were more like you? Were you able to do that, or were you forced?
No, I was sort of it always seemed like an older guy or a couple older guys would take me under their wing and would make sure I was doing okay and being in trouble.
Mm-hmm.
One specific bad time I had was when I had a toothache and I went to the company dentist. He tried to pull it. He worked on it for, I don't know, 20 or 30 minutes trying to get it out. And he said, well, I'm not going to do that anymore because I'm afraid I'll crack your jawbone. If I had to wait all night long with a pounding toothache because it was worse than it was before. And then they took me by cheek to a better equipped in the hospital where the dentist there chipped it out little by little. Because at the company they didn't have x-rays or anything.
Mm-hmm. Because you were mostly a mobile unit.
Mm-hmm.
You showed me a picture of some civilians who were sorting through trash cans. Tell me why this was happening.
Well, in Europe at that time, there were what they called displaced people. These were people that somehow or other were moved from where they live, such as Russia or the Balkans or Poland or wherever. There are many different things. And these people just lived on whatever they can find. They weren't prisoners, they weren't soldiers. So in order to get something to eat, they would sort through our garbage can. We had plenty of food. And then in order to make it more convenient for them, we began sorting the garbage so that the coffee grounds and everything wasn't thrown in with the edible scraps of meat and potatoes. So then they would go through these other garbage cans that were pre-selected, so as to.
In your photo albums of the war, I also saw pictures of the Riviera. Were you there for work or recreation?
I was in the 1308th Engineer Unit at that time, and we were sent down there because they needed more troops in Korea, and we were going to go to Korea. At that time also, some other engineer groups needed more soldiers for Europe. And I was one of the ones that was chosen to be transferred. And that group that was on the Riviera went to Korea, and I went into the 61st Combat Engineers Battalion.
What did you think of the Riviera?
We stayed in Madame Cody's mansion. We also went through King Carol of Romania's house. Actually, we didn't see too much of it because the first night we were there, everybody went AWOL, and then they were restricted at base. And then
How long were you there?
I think I was there about a week. I don't know how long they were, but I was back after the wars were over, discharged before the 1308 ever got back from Korea.
Hmm.
That was kind of lucky.
Are you glad you didn't go to Korea then?
Yeah.
When your unit was ready to return to the United States, what operation were you currently involved in?
Just playing around. Playing baseball. I remember I was playing baseball and I injured one of my fingers and it was infected then, and I had that on the boat coming back. And had to soak it in hot water so I can use a finger there. Turned out to be good.
Did another unit replace your unit when you came back, or was your mission over?
No, it was all
Okay.
they were generally sending people back according to how many points the points were determined by the months in Europe, the total months in the service.
Did you receive a welcome home?
Yes.
What did that consist of?
Well, they had boats in the harbor at New York, big signs on them.
Were you glad to get back home?
Oh, yeah. My mother didn't know I was coming back, and she got home and I walked in the house and she was doing laundry. Really surprised.
Relieved? What's your most vivid memory of your service in Europe?
Well, one of them was when we landed in Scotland and immediately went by train down to Blackburn in Lancashire. And we were housed in an old shoe factory that's about 4 stories high. And the toilets were down on the ground just outside the building. And I think I was on about the 4th floor. We had spaghetti for supper that afternoon when we got there. And I just stayed there. A lot of the guys went into town and got drunk. And when they came back, and spaghetti turned out to be bad. And there were no lights allowed in the building at all. They had stone steps running from floor to floor, no elevators. And that night everybody had diarrhea. And some of the drunks couldn't make it down the steps. And the steps was all covered with poop. They were sliding down, trying to get down to the latrine. Oh, I can't forget that.
Do you eat spaghetti now?
Oh, for a while I couldn't drink Coke at all because going over on the boat, I could never make it to the mess hall to eat because the lines were long. And before I could even get there, I was seasick. So I'd go back to my bunk, and we had rations and bottles of Coke and Baby Ruth bars or something like that. And that's what I survived on the way over. So for years after that, I couldn't eat a Baby Ruth bar or drink a Coke.
Did you come back by boat also?
Yes, but it was a better boat.
So you were able to get something to eat other than candy bars and
Well,
Coke?
yes, but I was sick the first couple of days coming back. I happened to pick up a Luger pistol. Actually, it was parts from a German factory, and you put them together. And I would bring that back with me. And this one Navy guy wanted a souvenir like that. I didn't have any need. And he said, I'll give you $25 for that. Because I'd run out of money already. I didn't So I sold him that for $25, and I got him a dice game. And I threw 13 consecutive 7s and 11s. And some Navy guy who got in it, he didn't survive that at all. He lost all his money before I ever got rid of the dice. And by the time I got off the boat, I had about $300.
And a few less
I could have had
friends.
3,000 if I'd have bet more while. Interesting.
What impact did your service have on your life?
I think it was a good experience. I felt that I didn't want to be in the service anymore. I just felt also that war is not the way to solve problems.
Okay. Tell me about your education and career choice after your military career ended.
Well, I always wanted to go to college. I'm an engineer, and that's what I did. My dad wanted me to
What school did you go to?
Ohio State.
You have
A
an
5-year course at the
How did your experience with the Army Corps of Engineers influence your life's work as an engineer? Did that confirm your desire to be an engineer?
Actually, I took up a different branch of engineering. I started out in chemical engineering, and I didn't like the smell of chemicals. So I switched to chemistry.
Okay. Well, Dale, I want to thank you for your contribution to this project and for your willingness to share your experiences from World War II with me today. Thanks.
Me too.